Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Bytes Show, the Miami Herald Miami Marlins show. I'm Jordan McPherson. I'm riding solo this time around, and just quickly reacting to the bit of breaking news that dropped on Monday morning. The Marlins announced that Kim Ng, first female general manager in MLB history, first woman to serve as a GM for any major professional men's team in North American sports, is not returning for the 2024 season. She had been the Marlins GM the past 3 seasons, and this year was probably her best year yet. She got them to the playoffs for the first time in a full season since the 2003 World Series winning season. First time they made to the playoffs period since 2020, the pandemic shortened season. Obviously, it was a short run in the playoffs, got swept by the Phillies in the wild card series, but the news in general, as it came as a surprise at the time of the announcement, considering, like I said, they just made the playoffs and just how much praise Ng had received from basically everyone inside the organization. When the Marlins were celebrating in Pittsburgh after clinching a playoff spot, players, executives, coaches alike were making sure she was a focal point of the celebration. Jazz Chisholm Jr. called her Mama Kim and was just praising how she made the right moves year after year. Even principal owner and chairman Bruce Sherman himself said that she did, quote, a fabulous job, end quote, getting the Marlins back to the playoffs. That was just 2.5 weeks ago. So what happened between then and now? The big picture part of it was contract was expiring at the end of the month. The Marlins had offered her or had exercised their team option for Kim Ng to return for the 2024 season. Ng declined her mutual option. Here's sort of the gist of what we know at this point based off of what's been said and what we can report. Bruce Sherman's statement, in addition to talking about them exercising the team option and Kim declining her side of the mutual option, was, quote, "We thank Kim for her contributions during her time with the organization and wish her and her family well. We will immediately begin a thorough and extensive search for new leadership as we plan to continue to invest in the Marlins organization, both on and off the field. We are committed to our fans and the South Florida community and look to build off the momentum of the great progress of this year," end quote. Okay, so that's the Marlins side of it, but you know that's not where the story ends. Here's what Kim Ng said in a statement to various outlets after she decided to step down. A quick note on that: as of the time of this recording, Kim Ng did not return the Miami Herald's request for comment, but she did send this statement out to at least 2 other outlets. Quote, "Last week, Bruce and I discussed his plan to reshape the baseball operations department. In our discussions, it became apparent that we are not completely aligned on what that should look like, and I felt it best to step away. I wish to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Marlins family and its fans for my time in South Florida. This year was a great step forward for the organization, and I will miss working with Skip and his coaches, as well as all of the dedicated staff in baseball operations and throughout the front office. They are a very talented group, and I wish them success in the future," end quote. All right, with Kim's statement specifically, I'm going to break into 2 parts. First, when she talks about it becoming apparent that they were not completely aligned, her and Bruce Sherman, on what the baseball operations department should look like. Before I get into this side of it, it's a very, very similar statement to what Derek Jeter said in his statement when he stepped down just before spring training 2022, as the lockout was starting to end and he decided to step down. He said something very similar about the message and the alignment not being the same. So this is now 2 high-end people inside the organization who have said their thought process for how baseball operations should be aligned and how the organization's direction should be aligned differ from what the owner wants. So that's 2 people who have done that. And now specifically with Kim Ng and how everything went with Bruce Sherman, one of the main areas where that alignment didn't meet, as was first reported by ESPN's Jeff Passan, was that Sherman wanted to hire a president of baseball operations to work above Ng. And while Ng would still keep her GM title, it's essentially a demotion without changing the title. She would be the number 2 to whoever Bruce Sherman wanted to hire to be that president of the baseball operations. And considering what she had just accomplished, everything she had done, specifically this past year, to get them to where they are, that's just a head scratcher move to basically say, "Hey, Kim, congratulations on what you did. We're hiring a new boss for you." There's something missing here. or it's just a decision that may or may not have been fully thought through. The second part of her statement, where she talked about the very talented group that the Marlins have, it's a group that's very talented that was assembled by Kim Ng. She was the one who made a bulk of the decisions, brought in a bunch of the main players, especially in these past 2 years, from the time that Derek Jeter stepped down and she assumed full control of baseball operations. It's hard to understand exactly how she put this team together, considering the payroll for the team made it tough to fully attack free agent like she probably would have wanted to do. And the fact that the farm system and their development side in the minor leagues hasn't lived up to expectation. They've yet to fully develop a true power threat or just a true threat in general when it comes to hitters. And they have had success on the pitching side. Obviously, you see Eury Perez, you see Max Meyer, you see Trevor Rogers and Braxton Garrett and Edward Cabrera. All three of those guys were here before Kim Ng, but were developed while they were under this new ownership group to watch. But to rehash just the trades and the deals that she made to get this team to where they are, getting Jesus Luzardo from the Oakland Athletics for Starling Marte's expiring contract in 2021, getting Brian De La Cruz for Yimi Garcia's expiring contract from the Houston Astros in 2021. Jorge Soler probably being the best of the free agent signings she had, obviously struggled in 2022, but 36 home runs this year, all-star, and was really one of those big boy bats that they needed in that lineup. Signing Sandy Alcantara to that team-friendly $56 million contract before he had arbitration, before he became the Cy Young winner, before his price probably would have been too high for the Marlins to match, given just their track record. And obviously, Sandy Alcantara struggled this year, and is going to be out for next year after undergoing Tommy John surgery. But just his presence with the rest of that rotation, showing them what needs to be done to be that leader for a young, growing starting pitching staff. He was that guy everyone was able to lean on and was able to help those guys under him who have since flourished. Jesus Luzardo, Braxton Garrett, Eury Perez, Edward Cabrera at times. Obviously, he still has the command stuff. The list goes on with what they were able to do, and Alcantara is at the center of that. Relievers, getting Tanner Scott, who has evolved into one of MLB's best relievers for a pair of low-tier prospects just before the end of spring training in 2022. Obviously, the big deal this last offseason, Luis Arraez, getting him for Pablo Lopez and two prospects. The table setter at the top of the lineup, two-time batting champion. Trading away J.J. Bleday for left-handed reliever A.J. Puck, who they have under control for 4 more years, I might add. And then everything she did, the trade deadline, Josh Bell and Jake Burger specifically being those final 2 pieces to spark that lineup. Again, those are just the big moves. And obviously, we can't forget her hiring Skip Schumacher as manager. He had zero managerial experience. Obviously, he knows what winning culture looks like between his time with the Cardinals and his time with the Padres, and just the little bit of the coaching and front office experience he had. But she took a chance on him. He had zero managerial experience. There were obviously other candidates who were probably more experienced and more fit for the role, but she got the guy who was able to execute the organization's plan, get the players to buy in, and get everything to work. And he was the guy from the field level getting the team to reach its potential to make the playoffs. And again, this team would not be where it was, and probably wouldn't be where it's hopefully heading if they're able to keep the trajectory without the moves that Kim Ng made. And the decision not to value her, to basically say that somebody is going to be having the decisions above her, it's just a bad look on the organization. And it's tough to see how that happened, especially when you saw all that praising just barely 2.5 weeks ago. And now, while Sherman said that he will begin that thorough and extensive search, clock's ticking. Again, the offseason begins 5 days after the World Series ends. That could be as short as 2.5 weeks from now. So the Marlins have about 2.5, 3 weeks, if they're lucky, to get everything in position before they have to start making a lot of their big moves. Obviously, Josh Bell and Jorge Soler have their player options that have to be decided within 5 days, team options that have to be decided 5 days after the World Series ends, getting ready for deciding how they're going to handle the 40-man roster, getting a decision on how they want to attack free agency, how they want to target people. And if you don't have the person who's going to be making the executive decisions and figuring out the direction they want on board, everything they do beforehand could potentially go up in smokes if the person who they end up hiring wants a completely different vision. So they need to figure out who's taking over, who's going to be leading them, and what that person wants and what that person is able to do, so they can have all their ducks in a row to try to maximize on what they were able to do and try to build on this momentum that they have after making the playoffs. With that said, for the time being, the Marlins do have their 3 assistant GMs, Brian Chatton, Dan Greenlee, Ozzo Campo. So they will be the people sort of running the ship for the time being until Bruce Sherman makes his hire for the next general manager, player, baseball operations, or potentially one of each, depending on what they end up deciding to do. Hopefully we'll have some more clarity on exactly what Bruce Sherman's direction is in the next few days. And we'll have a lot more to talk about on this over the coming weeks. For now, that's going to do it for this quick episode of Fish Bites. I'm Jordan McPherson. Thanks so much for listening in, and we'll be back again. I'm assuming we'll be back next week just because of just how much information we're going to have to discuss. Thanks so much.